The following program has been pre-recorded, so please don't call in at this time. If you wish to participate in the program, tune in at 5 p.m. every Wednesday for A Pause for Thought on Baton Rouge Community Radio. Good evening, fellow humans. This is Wayne Parker with A Pause for Thought, coming to you on Baton Rouge Community Radio, WHYRLP 96.9 FM in Baton Rouge. This is a live call-in show, so you are all invited to call in and voice your views and sentiments on the topic of the day. And we have chosen a topic. I'll give it to you in a second. But if you would like to call in and share your thoughts, just dial 343-9927. If you happen to be outside the calling area and are live streaming on WHYR.org, then dial the area code 225 and then 343-9927. Now, this is a call-in discussion show. We have a topic chosen for the night, but we need not constrain ourselves to the specific topic. Going off on tangents related to the topic is both okay and encouraged. However, all comments must be voiced strictly as opinions and in a respectful manner. Anyone who wishes to preach or insult other opinions will be asked to adjust their attitude once. As the title of this show implies, I want to create an environment where people can discuss issues that are important to them, our community, to our state, and the country as a whole. We have a Facebook page, but we don't have a computer right now in the studio. But for future shows, you can go there and find out what the next week's topic will be, and put on your comments there. We can use them on the air, so you don't need to worry about getting on the air since we have just one line here. Anyway, tonight's topic is this. Is it possible to be a truly free country? Is it possible to be a truly free country? And with me tonight are Jim and John. If you go to the website or go to Facebook, you'll be able to see what they look like and what their full names are, but right now they're just Jim and John. Good evening, guys.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Glad to have you here. Anyway, is it possible to live in a truly free country? I did some checking on freedom or free, what it means to be free. And my Oxford Desk Reference Dictionary states that one definition was not under the control of another, at liberty. Unrestricted, not restrained or fixed. Is it possible to live in a country where we enjoy such things, or is it possible to have a country where such things exist? My idea is, I used to be a libertarian. Okay, that was good ways back, of course, and I no longer am. But the big things I like to say about government were that the sole purpose of government is to ensure justice. And I would like to say that I have the right to do whatever I want so long as I harm no one else. And to me, those were the only restrictions that should be placed legally on human beings. Does anybody have a comment on that or anything like that? Do you think that would work? I think that idea would work.
I don't think so. We live in a real complex society now. We're dependent on everybody else. We're crowded. We can't decide to drive on the left side of the road, so we have to have laws so everybody drives on the same side of the road. We have to have rules of society.
Such as what? Such as what?
How to behave in public. If you're in public radio, you have to be a little careful on the words you chose or who you talk about or how you talk about people. You can be sued for slander or arrested if you say the wrong things about the wrong people.
Okay, that falls under, though, the government ensuring justice, or how did I say that sole purpose of government is to ensure justice? Yeah, that's kind of what that covers there. But yeah, if we had a country where we didn't have any rules of the road, so to speak, that would probably present a problem. So you're saying then that we're not free?
No.
Not totally free, not truly free.
No, I watched the Republican presidential debate last night, and what are they talking about? Limiting access for certain groups, not letting them come into the country, limiting even the internet, who you talk to. It's really strange trying to track down terrorists. The things you have to do to track down terrorists in this country limit your freedom.
Yeah, well,
and your independence.
And to be politically balanced, I would also point out that many chafe at the Democratic Party wanting to make people pay for other people's welfare and things like that. John, you had a comment you wanted to make?
I would say, talking about rules that we live by as a society, I think is a rub. There's an awful lot of debate and discussion about, well, what are the proper rules, and I think that discussion and debate is very healthy. Unfortunately, we're not able to agree on all of them, and that leads to some of the differences and some of the issues that we experience here in what we would like to be or what we would like to call a free country.
Okay. Is the majority opinion necessary for all laws in order for us to be a free country?
Apparently not. Getting back to the debate last night, there seems to be an escape when people make a moral political decision, like maybe not to bomb somebody, to protect supposedly to protect American citizens. People who make moral decisions, that I think the president does sometimes, and then gets attacked ferociously for political correctiveness. That's really a popular term now with conservatives. If there's sensitivity to people needs and so forth, poor people or handicapped people, and they get attacked for political correctness.
I'm
saying the right thing.
Yes, I am empathetic with that attitude, actually. When I was once a libertarian, I would say things like that. People should toughen up. People should get thicker skin. So, but yes, we want to be careful not to beat too much up on the Republicans, because as a matter of fact, I consider myself to be conservative in a larger sense, but I no longer worry about specifics because I realize that when you're dealing with human nature, it's really tough sometimes to be specific, especially in laws and things like that. But yeah, getting back to answer my question directly rather than rhetorically, is the majority's view of something necessarily, or is it necessary for freedom? I mean, do the majority of people automatically know what freedom is or what right and wrong is? Should right and wrong be determined by a majority of people?
I think that brings us to the question that if the majority always rules the minority, then the minority may not always have the same rights or freedom that the majority has. So while I'm not a so-called constitutional scholar, I think that our system is set up legally to where the minority has a certain amount of voice in our representation, in our legislatures, and there's a reason why we have at times 2/3 vote required to have laws passed instead of majority, and also why we can have a minority party president who can not agree. I'm looking for the word. Help me with the word here, but veto. Thank you. Veto.
Right.
Veto a majority law.
Well, that's true. I would think that originally a veto would be due to the law being unconstitutional. That was originally James Madison's reason for vetoing a bill to set aside monies to build international roads and canals for the country. He said the argument that it was for the general welfare and common defense was bogus and did not fall under the Constitution, and he vetoed it for that reason. Yeah, I guess nowadays, people do go more on morals, and that may be because, I think, in my opinion, because we have so much of the majority opinion swaying people, and or being swayed by demagogues or smooth talkers or whatever, and so there's not always that. And actually, from what I can understand of our system of government, the people in Washington were expected to use their own judgment. They were there to represent the people, yes, but if the majority of people wanted to pass a law, say, banning Muslims or some other minority from entering the country, it was the government's responsibility to not do that. In fact, that was the reason why the U.S. Senate was originally set up to be appointed by the state legislatures. They wanted to create a so-called aristocratic body separate from the passions of the people, so that they would not be subjected to that passion and would be a more constraining force on those particular things.
Aristocratic is an interesting word, because that's just exactly what they were. They were all the people. To be able to vote, you had to be a male.
Well, that's true. And
in most states, you had to be a property owner.
Yes.
So it was an aristocratic group who were afraid of the mob.
Right.
General Henry Adams called them the mob. Most of the people.
Right.
Except the aristocrats. But we've gone a long way from that, and maybe thanks to Jefferson. We have a constitution with better rights. The majority, I was thinking, if you ask most Americans what kind of a country we are, they will say we're a Christian nation.
Oh, yes.
And probably 70% or more people claim to be Christians. Whereas the Constitution, it says government will make no religion. It gives us the freedom of religion. It's one of the great things where we could become a real democracy, because eventually Jews, anybody, atheists, anybody could be a citizen.
Yeah.
And you could have whatever belief you wanted as long as you didn't break the law.
Right. And, of course, that's a whole can of worms there. I do want to remind our listeners that they can call in 343-9927. If you're live streaming at WHYR.org, you'll dial the area code 225 and then 343-9927. John, you had a question or a comment?
Well, just a comment. What I hear both of you and Jim saying is, early on, our country was not necessarily, according to today's standards, set up as a free country. So it sort of reminds me, or makes me think, okay, maybe a free country is a process which evolves over time, improving over time, hopefully, to where we become a more free country, freer and more free, where we may not ever get to be a perfectly free country, but we are more free now than we were 100 years ago or 200 years ago, possibly.
That's debatable. Yeah, I was agreeing with you in the beginning, and I think it's a mixed bag, actually, because on the positive side, we've seen pushes for equal rights. We've at least got laws passed to end racial discrimination. We still know that exists, of course. And recently, unfortunately, the Supreme Court had to do it, but they are requiring states to acknowledge same-sex marriage as well, and to honor it and will legalize it, because some churches, have been performing marriages for a long time, but it didn't have legal standing as far as insurance companies, retirement benefits, and Social Security and things like that. But by the same token, America has by far the highest percentage of its population behind bars. And a lot of that is due to laws that a majority of people wanted on the books, even though they govern people's personal behavior, where they don't harm anybody else. Well, I'm talking specifically about doing drugs, the drug war. I mean, that was totally something that I believe Richard Nixon pushed up, and of course a majority of Americans thought that was a great idea because nobody should do drugs anyway, and so therefore they passed that law and our prisons filled up, and here we go. So yeah, it's kind of a mixed bag.
Well, maybe we can say, and not in defense of what I just said a while ago, maybe it's not a perfect straight line.
Right.
Maybe we have one step forward, two steps forward, one step back.
And nature's perfection is found in its infinite imperfections. You try and you learn and you move forward, and maybe you adjust a little bit.
Right.
And what about the general trend of our government, though? Do you think that's going to be toward more freedom?
I think
for
we have
everyone?
some big problems in the area. For instance, the Supreme Court, quite a few years ago, decided that corporations are people too.
Right.
And that led to the big money in this country, the 1% or the filthy rich, whatever you want to call them, can essentially buy elections. And when elections are bought by a minority of people, you are losing freedom. So we have dips down, but on the other hand, we have dips up.
Yeah.
The decision about recent Supreme Court decisions you're talking about too. So it's a battle. It's a constant battle. To
Yes.
keep a democracy.
Yes, I think it is a constant battle. I think the fight for good in any manifestation is a constant fight. There are just a lot of negative things. We got a call coming through. It just seems like negative seems to have the upper hand a lot of times. This is a pause for thought on Baton Rouge Community Radio. Who may I talk to?
Hey, this is Daniel.
Hey, Daniel.
Hey,
What's up?
I just want to make an observation. Just my personal opinion, but it seems
That's
like
okay.
it seems like that part of the problem with freedom in our country lately is that there's a increased sense of apathy and political disengagement among the people, and it seems like as that increases, there's more of a willingness to be governed, to have someone else make the decisions for them, and to concede, personal freedoms that, 50, 100 years ago, people wouldn't have even imagined conceding. I think it's kind of maybe a moral laziness. I'm not sure exactly how to describe it, but that just seems to be my observation.
What do you think happened to cause that? Why do you think that is?
I don't know. I mean, it might have something to do with the fact that our lifestyles have become a little bit more frantic. We're a lot busier than maybe people were earlier. I don't really know. It just seems like we have less and less interest in what's going on in our government, and as our interest decreases, our willingness to let somebody else step up and do whatever they want to do. It seems like that's a trend.
I would tend to agree with you, and for one thing, if we had to go to local government to get a major bridge fixed into our town, I'll bet the people would become a whole lot more politically active then. But because that's taken care of by people so far away, we just kind of assume it will be taken care of.
Yeah, I agree.
Okay, well, Daniel, is there anything else you'd like to add?
I think that's it.
All right, I sure appreciate the call.
Daniel said the word apathy.
Yeah.
I think that's really true. Look at Louisiana or Baton Rouge. Most elections are lucky to get 25% of the voters out.
Yeah.
A big presidential election or important election, we might get 50% out. And that's just of those that bothered to register. So apathy, I think, was the right word.
Yeah.
From Daniel.
And there's, I don't have any better idea than he does either. I mean, it's probably a lot of things, probably a lot of factors, but I know we're harangued a lot by the media. At least we were back when I watched mainstream media. I don't pay attention to it now. And more of the politicians seem to be disconnected. And of course, my view is that they're mainly bought. But that's another issue altogether. But yeah, just generally, people. Washington D.C. is a long ways off from where we are. We don't know what's going on. We don't know what's really in the laws they pass. And to be honest with you, from what I've read, the politicians that pass the laws don't know everything that's in a law. The laws are so long they don't have time to. No single person in Washington D.C. Knows everything in a law. So that right there is a wonderful opportunity for corruption, which I'm not going to say really exists, but Donald Trump, of course, said it does exist. He's come right out and said in debates that he has paid politicians to do the things that he wanted them to do or to support bills that he wanted. And people aren't going to do that sort of thing unless it works, I suppose.
One comment I would add to that is that Daniel had an interesting comment that I happen to agree with, is that lifestyles have become more frantic. And from my own personal opinion and experience, I think he's absolutely right. That doesn't mean to say that that's a good thing for our society. Why are we spending more time doing some things that we do at the expense of paying more attention and giving more energy to our system of government and what one individual can do to make an impact on our lives and our community?
Yeah.
And I think that's a question that I'm thinking about now more so than ever.
Yeah, well, I'll go along with that, but I think a frantic lifestyle in large part is because we all have to work so much, especially our younger people, unless they're very fortunate to have got an education or become tech savvy. You have to work one or two, maybe three jobs to get by. And that robs you of time of other pursuits, such as reading or studying. And Thoreau pointed that out, too, as a drawback with the working people. He said, how can a man become aware of his ignorance when he's always having to employ his knowledge? If you're always having to use knowledge, you never have a chance to explore things that challenge your views or your understanding of life, and so you don't become enlightened. You don't have time to pursue other interests to learn things. So, and of course, too, have we not had democracy driven into our heads? Majority rule is what is the greatest thing in the world. And yet, how often do we see a large number of people being misled by different things? Look how many people supported or firmly believed that Saddam Hussein had weapons of mass destruction, and that turned out to be nothing. But it was all through persuasion, emotional appeals and fear, of which there's a lot in America now, today.
I think a lot of people put aside their brains when politics comes up, almost as a dirty word. A long time ago, I kind of decided that what people really want is a king. They want to vote for the president, and the president should take care of everything. And when there's any problems, it falls into the president's fault, the king's fault. And I think people really believe they vote for the president. Of course, whoever is running for president makes lots of promises, but can't necessarily carry them out. But then they blame the king.
You're right.
Instead of voting for that congressman or senator or mayor
Well, and
that they didn't care to vote for.
I remember the media talking about how the president manages the economy, and I thought, look at the complexity of our economy. It's an international thing. I mean, our economy is affected by little situations over in India and countries all over the world. How can anybody really manage that? But yet, if the economy goes down, like you say, the president gets blamed. If the economy goes up, the president is praised. And I see posts on Facebook all the time. Yeah, I use Facebook, everybody. I'm an old guy. But I see posts all the time that Obama was responsible for gas prices falling when they were falling, and all this other stuff. And it's like the president can't do anything about that. At least not in the long term, But there is a lot to be said for that. I'm being reminded again by my supporters to mention our phone number, 343-9927. Feel free to call in. We have a few minutes left in the broadcast. If you're outside the calling area, live streaming on whyr.org, just call the area code 225 and then 343-9927. We'd be happy to hear from you. And like I said, you can check us out on our Facebook page, A Pause for Thought. It's easy enough to find. Just join it, and then you can post your own responses and topics or ideas that we can use on the air in the following week. Oh, let's see.
And just going back, if I can,
Sure.
on building on Daniel's call-in concerning apathy and voter apathy, one of the definitions that I read was a free country is a country in which there is a constitutionally guaranteed government, representative and elected by the people. So if the people don't elect the representatives that they believe will do the best job, then I don't think a free country in the way that we want to have it will be realized. So the question goes back, how do we elect our representatives to maintain our free country?
Right, and that's a whole another discussion, I suppose. Of course, what do we mean by representing us? A lot of people believe that if they don't do what the majority in their district believes, then they're not representing them. And, of course, if that's the case, then we basically do operate it by majority rule. And I would suggest that freedom is threatened by that, because most people, how should I say this? Your educated, wise, thoughtful folks do not constitute a majority.
Let me mention an example. I think it's Egypt. People wanted freedom in Egypt, and they rioted in the streets, and they caused a turnover and got a free election, and they elected essentially a terrorist group.
Because there was
and then
their
the
majority.
military came over.
Right.
And they
And then pulled
because
out,
they
yeah.
elected according to their religious denominations,
Right.
Sunnis or Shiites, whatever. They didn't think they were Egyptians. They were
Muslims. Yeah.
a certain kind of a Muslim
A certain kind, correct.
who then hate each other.
Right.
And the whole thing collapsed.
Yes. Yeah, that's true. And to me, that's the danger with majority opinion. And we are just about out of time here, everyone. You've been listening to A Pause for Thought here on WHYR LP 96.9 FM, Baton Rouge Community Radio. And I will mention that we are the only 100% donation-funded and volunteer-staffed radio station in Baton Rouge. Next week's topic will be, is there such a thing as a bad human being? Is there such a thing as a bad human being? And I will put that on the Facebook page. And if you'd like, you can post your comments on that topic for discussion next week on the Facebook page. And as I sign off, I will remind you all to never doubt that a small group of thoughtful and committed people can change the world. Indeed, it is the only thing that ever has. Thank you very much.